What's going on, guys? It's Mitch Monomass here, coming at you with another Rate My Ride video. This video we're doing Gingin Road, which is found just outside of Yea, heading towards Highlands. It's sort of, you can use this as a way to do a back way to get to Seymour rather than taking the main highway. So it's found, yeah, just outside of Yea. You start to head towards Seymour, and then there's a turn off for Gingin Road. It says Gingin because it goes through the town called Gingin, and then it turns into Highlands Road when you start to head towards Seymour, or keep going up north towards sort of Euroa, Strathbogie direction. So, in terms of accessibility, it's about an hour and a half from Melbourne, so it's not the worst thing to get to. It's super easy to find. You're pretty much, if you're coming from Melbourne, probably the easiest way is to go up through, from CBD is to go up through Whittlesea, then Flowerdale, and cutting through to Yea along the Maroondah Highway, or the sort of the back way. Via, I always forget the name of that road, the Whittlesea Yea Road. That's probably your best bet in terms of getting there. There's not really many other ways you can get there from Melbourne, but other than if you're coming from sort of the east, you can come up through Yarra Glen. Yes, the accessibility easily, so it's not right next to the CBD, so I'm not going to give it a high number, but about a 7 out of 10. It's not the worst thing in the world to get to, but it still is a little bit of a traffic. Yeah. So moving on, we have length. So length is kind of where this sort of falls down. It's not very long. It's about 16.6 k's, where it's just the Gingin Road. But you follow it off with turning off to the Highlands Road, and then heading towards Seymour, or you can keep following it through to Creighton's Creek, and make it longer, but that's not technically that road anymore, so I've taken that out. So length, I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Not great, but not too short. It's a very, very sort of short-lived, but okay in this aspect that it's, not the... It connects to other things, which we'll talk about when we get up to chaining. So the next one is traffic. Now, I went here on a weekday, in sort of the middle of the day, and it was completely dead, but just looking, there's not much around there, so there's not much to see, there's not much for people to do, so they won't sort of stop there and get in your way. So I'd say the traffic's probably 8 or 9 out of 10. There's pretty much no one that goes through there, being that it doesn't really lead to any sort of major towns from Yea. It only leads to sort of smaller towns, nothing like Seymour or Broadford or Yark. Well, Yark's not really a main town, it's just in the middle of the highway. Yeah, so the traffic I'm going to give an 8 out of 10. There's not that many cars that'll be coming through. It's not very busy. It's not very, it won't cause you much problems and things like that. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. The next is the condition. There's and this always follows on nicely from traffic, because they sort of, you'll find that high trafficked areas usually end up being a little bit worse condition, but there is sort of like this kind of crossover point once you get to a certain point that it starts to go downhill, because Vic Roads or the councils don't maintain it, because not many people go through it. But I found the condition when I rode it, so this is back in January, to be really good. There was one set of roadworks at one point, so that was something to watch out for. But I think that was supposed to be finished by about March. I won't get to go back there until probably later this year. Yeah, so I'm going to give the condition a 7 out of 10. It wasn't perfect. There were still a few things that, needed to be improved and needed to be looked at and uh, looked after and yeah, but the road was in good nick and there was just leaves and stuff out in the road, which you'll be able to see in the footage. Alright, off to Twistiness. Now this is a fun road. I wouldn't put it in the top roads in Victoria in terms of the twistiness, but it's this nice touring road. Perfect if you've got a pillion because it's not too flippy floppy. Perfect to add to a run. If you're going through that area. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about chaining. But the twistiness is really good. There's really long open sections where you can really sort of push the bike at sort of a higher speed and not have to flick it too much. So it's actually probably better for bigger bikes than it is for something like the R3. So when I've got a bigger bike, I might change my opinion, and that road might feel a lot better than it did on the R3. But you can sort of take all of that road as however you like. There's some really good sections sort of in the mid to late part if you're coming from Yea, so getting closer to Highlands rather than Yea. That is definitely some of the funner part of that run. So the twistiness I'm going to give a 6 out of 10. Not the funnest in terms of the twistiness, but that sort of open cornery stuff does lead into a bit of fun as well. Yeah. Chaining is where this sort of comes into fruition. It's in Yea. If you are strategic with coming from Melbourne, you'd be able to do the Whittlesea Kinglake roads, cut through, come up through Flowerdale, go through Yea, go up and do a loop around Highlands to Seymour, and then loop back, getting close to Yea, and come through Strath Creek. Go through Broadford. There's a lot of sort of options in terms of the chaining. It's not the best road I've seen in terms of chaining, but it's definitely up there with some of the better sort of roads in terms of you can link it with everything. You can make it part of a trip. You can make it a detour. That's how I found this road. I went, I don't want to just go from Yea up through Seymour, because there was a couple of roads up near Seymour that I wanted to check out that ended up not being that great. Definitely not worth sort of rate my ride. So the chaining, I'm going to put probably the highest thing for this at about an 8, so level with the traffic. It's a great sort of road, a lot of connections and things like that, but it is still kind of removed from any particular road. You still have a little bit of what I call transport time, which is just the time it takes to get between one really good road and the other. It's not that long depending on which direction you're coming from, which direction you're starting in. So if you're coming from the Seymour end, there's not a lot of quick fun roads to get to. But if you're coming from the Yea ends, you'll be coming from really fun roads. I haven't been, followed Highlands Road going the other way, going up through Caveat, Cretons Creek to Euroa. If those roads are fun, there's some awesome, there's probably an awesome route you can do, but I don't know those roads well enough, so I'm going to have to go out there and adventure to, give you that. But yeah, I'm going to set the chaining at an 8, just like the traffic was, and that's probably going to be the highest rate. The speed limit, no road in Australia feels like the speed limit's high enough for motorcyclists. They all seem sort of not perfect, not ideal, all a little bit low, but this is probably one of the highest speed limit roads in Australia, so I'm going to go 7. It's not great, it's not perfect, but it's it's an enjoyable ride, and there's not anything super, you feel like the speed limit's too low at any point, but once again, I say that with like just compared to other roads, it doesn't feel like that. But a lot of roads in Australia, I think I'm always going to be a little bit harsh on the speed limit because there's quite a few that I think are way too low. There is that the Kinglake to, I'm trying to remember where it goes, St Andrews section of that road. Always the Heidelberg Kinglake Road always feels too low. When I eventually get round to making the Rate My Ride for that, I'll do it. Then overall, I'm going to be a bit harsh because I've been sort of too nice. I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. It's a road worth visiting, but I really wouldn't say go out and try this road. It's if this road can be fit into one of your trips, fit it in. But yeah, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.